Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings. A little bit of an ad hoc start today, very much rushed off the cuff almost. But welcome back to Ramblings, as per usual. Starting with the Patreon questions, working through everything else. Work was fine, a little busy, but that's just normal, part of the course at this point. Hello, night. The Dutchman's here. Marvelous. Always nice to have the Dutchman here. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. From Team Locker on Patreon. Panel's thoughts of a naval version of the Saab JS-39 Gripen. Could it work for the Brazilian and perhaps the RN in the future? The problem you have with the navalized version of something like Gripen is that a world in which it is valuable no longer exists. If we were in a world where the light Katobar carrier had survived, where the Sea Control ship, or the Katobar variants of the Sea Control ship, or something like it, would have proliferated in the 80s and 90s, where you would have seen the rise of a competitor to LHDs for smaller navies that wanted aviation capability. A world where either Harrier died off, or there wasn't or basically you'd need a world where Sea Harrier didn't prove the concept in the Falklands War, but basically there's no carriers that it can really operate from where there aren't better options, in essence. If you've got a Katobar carrier of any decent size, and you aren't buying, why aren't you buying F-18 or Rafale? Or F-35C is the Katobar version, I think. If you don't have a Katobar carrier, Gripens of basically no bloody use to you because you can't operate the damn thing. Unless you're making it Stobar, in which case, I mean, I guess you could sell it to India? But they're the only nation with any capability to operate it. As for Brazil and the RN, forget it. It could be launched, perhaps, from the QEs, but recovered? No way. And the Brazilians can't even launch the damn thing. So, to be brutally honest, any naval version of Gripen is just dead on arrival. And if the RN ever does return to Katobar carriers, there are way better options for procuring fighters for it. For God's sake, Rafale is right there. Next question. We'll start with YouTube and go to Discord later. 1981. In AAO, Germany builds 3 Nautilus-class missile cruisers in the mid-1990s, then 3 Atlantis-class missile cruisers in the mid-2000s. What German design might have been used for the base for the Nautilus? There is no design that you can use as a basis for that. There just isn't. Also, why? Why is Germany building missile cruisers exactly? What is the purpose of missile cruisers for Germany? Yes, I know it's the Britwank timeline, but why does Germany need 3 missile cruisers? And then 3 more in the mid-2000s? Why? What are the Germans doing that they need the potential to form 6 service action groups? What is the purpose of these ships? What is their mission statement? There's a reason why I said there's nothing that they could really be based on, because the German Navy, the Bundesmarine, quite rightly has looked at the idea of anything significantly larger than some of their larger frigate proposals, and quite rightly gone, the fuck do we need this for? Because they don't need it. Why do the Germans have 2 Invincibles? Again, the Bundesmarine has no need of carriers. They're not doing anything that needs carriers. The German Navy is
I know the answer.
Is not going out and doing ASW in the North Atlantic.
Look, they just have it because it's rad. Cool.
Yeah.
Aura farming.
They're doing ASW in an area where land-based aviation can provide just as good cover. You don't need the carriers. And also, even if you had the carriers, that still doesn't mean that you need missile cruisers. Especially not in the 90s. The 90s is the era of destroyers like Arleigh Burke. Late model Udaloy and Sovereigny. These are ships that quite handily, in terms of fleet air defense and naval strike, outpunch almost anything that's came before them, and ships that are significantly larger than them. Heck, even large frigates would do. Anyway, you think we got an episode on Discord. Which fighter jet is the ultimate and best fighter of the Cold War? The F-4 Phantom, the F-15, the English Electric Lightning, or the MiG-25? You put the F-15 on that list and expected anything else to win? First of all, the F-4 is... It's not... It is a fighter, but... The F-15 is just flat out better in every basic way. The Lightning's an interceptor with no fucking legs, though it is faster. And the MiG-25 has legs and is faster, but by the time the F-15 comes along, well, the F-15 is designed to defeat the MiG-25. The MiG-25 wishes it was. Yeah, it's F-15. It is unequivocally F-15. F-15 is so far in the lead ahead of the other options, it's not even funny. Timu on YouTube asked, Panel's favourite subject in school that they didn't know they liked beforehand. I don't know, school was 10 years ago, I don't really remember, like, anything I didn't go into and went, I love this. I don't really... I suppose all the sciences, I guess. Chemistry, physics, biology. I guess, since I didn't really do them prior to secondary school in a big way. So, yeah, chemistry, science, biology. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the,
No, probably chemistry for me as well. Doing the experiments was pretty cool.
Yeah. Typical Officer asks, why did the US only have one dedicated for either subsurface or air-launched anti-ship missile in the peak Cold War, the Harpoon? While the Soviets had multiple types of anti-ship missiles that could be launched from those three platforms stated above, do you think only having Harpoon for all subsurface, surface, or air-launched missiles will make procurement and production easier? This is because the US, and to a lesser extent some of its allies, were far more reliant on their carrier aviation for anti-ship strike. And also, you're forgetting the Tomahawk-shaped element in the room here? Like, Tomahawk sat there glaring at you. TSAM was a thing in the Cold War. Harpoon was just good. It was a relatively fast sea-skimming anti-ship missile that was relatively easy to procure and was reliably capable of defeating Soviet countermeasures. and active defense. And also, for the majority of the Cold War, Soviet air defense was significantly worse than its American counterpart. They had some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but Harpoon could keep getting lower and lower to the water with each subsequent version. And get more and more electronically complicated to get through their jamming. Whereas the Soviet missiles had to get bigger to get more capable. And also, the Soviets had a significantly tougher air defense environment to get through. They had multiple different styles of target they wanted to hit. And they had multiple different iterations as their electronics development enhanced and progressed. Given their electronics didn't necessarily scale the same way Western electronics did. So they had to go down a different path. But yes, Harpoon was significantly easier to procure and produce. And I said the other ones. What does the RN do if the emails and its drone plan is a busted flush, given the US is looking to abandon it and we can't get enough F-35Bs, which is looking like it might not? We die in the dark, Knight. To be brutally honest with you. We die in the dark. The Royal Navy has canned its 6 modern air defense destroyers in favor of drone-based bullshit. We haven't procured enough We've canned some of our F-35s in favor of a token nuclear strike force, which can't operate from the carriers. We might not be procuring all the Type 31 with all the Type 31 buy-in or all the Type 26 buy-in. And yeah. And our anti-ship strike... and yeah, by the way, we don't actually have... we don't actually have the ability to do naval strike at any significant distance from our carriers without our F-35s dying to Soviet SAMs before they can launch. Sorry, Russian SAMs before they can launch. We die in the dark, Knight.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Don't tell me about it. Oh my boy. How different were the historical perception of World War... Oh, hang on. I accidentally did the double... I'll do two Discords after this. Let's make up for it. Oh, well, how different would the historical perception of World War be if the Germans attacked the north coast of France rather than violating Belgium's neutrality was Britain's casus belli?
How do you want to get there without going through Belgium?
I mean, if you want to send the German fleet steaming down the channel, the RN would be basically standing in their way going, if you want to do this, you're going to have to go through us because we're not having you in the channel. The RN had made that red... The British had made 2 red lines very clear to the Germans. Don't fuck about in the channel, and don't fuck about in Belgium. Now, it was pretty much a safe bet that Britain might join the war anyway. Well, at least that was the perspective, and honestly, the Germans might not have been wrong on that. It just might have taken more time. But, again, the historical perception wouldn't really be that different. Britain places red line. Germany crosses red line. Outcome is predictable and expected. It's not really a big surprise. On Discord, Gun Officer asks, why would you take the US 3-inch gun with VT fuse over... No, Knight, we don't have naval strike missile. An F-35 can't carry it. The only option we have for naval strike with F-35 is pave way. That's it. Would you take the US 3-inch gun with a VT fuse over the Sea-Cat missile for point defense or close-range weapon on your ship against either enemy missile or aircraft? Against enemy missile, I would probably prefer the 3-inch banging away. But against an early jet aircraft, no, Sea-Cat. Sea-Cat is a weapon designed for use against early jet aircraft carrying unguided ordnance, against which it is significantly more capable than against missiles. It's against early missiles that Sea-Cat starts to suffer, as it's far harder to get the pointer on them, far harder to spot them, and far harder to keep them tracked on. so that Mr. Sakalos guidance can take them down. Typical gunnery officer asks again, sod it, 2 for 2, why not? Do you believe the chieftain's claim that when he said the 17-pounder cannot hit the broadside of a barn beyond 500 yards, or what he said from inside a barn, and he would prefer to hit the more accurate 76mm US tank that all the 19 were going to hit targets at range? Do you think the US is too harsh to judge the accuracy of the 17-pounder and the report from testing is too biased and non-accurate? If the chieftain is saying something about armoured warfare during the Second World War, I have absolutely no reason to doubt the man, given that I know for a fact his research is fairly studious and thorough. He wouldn't be saying something unless he was quoting what he believed were fairly credible sources, plural, with him having investigated those sources. If he's saying it, there's reasons why he's saying it. Yeah, Knight, I said carrier strike. Not... No, Knight, they don't have naval strike missile, they're getting naval strike missile. And also, politely, Type 23? What Type 23s? Politely. We have 4 of them left. And also doing anti-ship strike is really not Type 45's job. I believe the latest one is... No, Kent's not been decommissioned, but she's in refit, so she's not available for active service. There's only 4 in active service right now. Chadlord asks, in a timeline where the Russo-Japanese War escalates into the French entering in the side of the French, I assume he means the Russians. Let's hand wave it to Paris. Either way. How long do you believe Germany stays neutral before joining the Anglo-Japanese side? Does the rest of the Triple Alliance actively join the war? Austria to remove a competitor from the Balkans, Italy to do the same in the Med. The Austrians, the Germans, and the Italians are going to want nothing to do with this clusterfuck. Politely. They're going to be sat there watching their greatest rivals tear themselves a new one. The Germans are going to be laughing hysterically at the Russians and the Russians, the British, and the French all gutting their navies. And basically allowing Germany to draw equal. I mean, Tirpitz is sat there clapping his hands in fucking joy, and so is the Kaiser. And also, they're under no illusions about which way this war's going to go. The Russians and the French are going to get their teeth kicked in very short order. The war will be over in a matter of months. Basically because the Russians will lose in the east, the French will get their navy kicked in, the French will get their navy's teeth kicked in, and will lose colonies to a British force that has absorbed the lessons of Second Boer War and is significantly more capable than basically any other army in any colonial theatre where the French can't bring their mass to bear. Which is going to be basically any colonial theatre, because the British are going to basically like, oh, you want to move reinforcements? No. No. The Kaiser may not like his uncle as much as his grandmother, but he gains literally nothing from joining this war. There's far more risks involved in joining compared to what Germany stands to gain from staying out of it. The chance to play post-war Kingmaker is huge. It's massive. So yeah, I don't think Germany will join the war, nor do I think Austria or Italy will. Timu, should the Baltic nations have combined naval forces since their economy might not be enough to upkeep national navies? No, the Baltic states should maintain the navies they have currently. The Baltic states maintain the navies that they need to have. Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia maintain small, but so far as I'm aware, ships of a kind I would expect. Mine layers, coastal patrol craft, mine hunters. Some of them maintain mine layers, hydrographic survey vessels, mine hunters, some patrol craft, and of course Coast Guard ships. I mean, and I think Lithuania has a slightly punchier navy. Yeah, so but again, like it's they have some patrol ships with 3-inch guns, so yeah, they got a slightly more punchy patrol fleet. They got some fast attack craft. But yeah, these are very much the littoral forces that know the terrain they're going to be fighting in. They know the role they have to play, but in peacetime, they're very much able to secure territorial waters and provide the role of a navy in peacetime, for which you need sovereign capability. So, no, the Baltic Navy should absolutely not have a combined navy. Absolutely not. Typical gunnery officer asks, do you believe the myth that the performance of the Sabre over Korea was much inferior than people think compared to MiG-15? Even with a radar-guided gun sight, the Sabre is weaker in terms of armament and also maneuverability over the MiG. Also, even in the hands of World War II veteran pilots, the pilot would have difficulty navigating the difficult F-86. I don't know nearly enough about the Korean War or the F-86 Sabre to even make a comment on that. But I've told you about asking leading questions. You know how I feel about leading questions. For one thing, the Sabre is not weaker in terms of armament compared to the MiG-15. Sure, the MiG has cannons, but the Sabre has 6 of the excellent M3 50 caliber machine guns, which, despite not being a 2 23mm and a 37, is still significantly more. Is still an almost equivalent armament, especially and actually, I'd argue it's superior in terms of burst mass and bullet over square meter of area compared to the MiG's cannon armament. And also, yeah, no, I'm just not touching the rest of that. I don't know enough to answer that question in a way that's not going to mangle at things any more than things are already mangled by that question. No, there are matches to shipwreck in terms of raw explosive yield. I believe TSAM has an equivalent warhead. Or at least close to it. Naval Strike Missile is fine. It's fine. It's a good upgrade to Harpoon. Can we have cycling back for rambling? Probably not. Probably not. 1981. In the AO, the British built HMS Enterprise, which is likely a British Long Breach, and then cancelled the indefatigable CGN. So what would make the British decide after a British Long Breach not to build CGN? Probably in AO, from what I understand, their significant overseas basing commitments, a desire not to tread on the toes of Commonwealth members who might not want nuclear-driven warships operating in their ports. Given that service action groups might go places carrier strike groups don't go. Maybe they had troubles with the nuclear fueling arrangements. Maybe there was a crimp on the availability of nuclear fuel for ships generally. Maybe they wanted to concentrate on the carrier program. Any number of reasons. You'd have to look in universe for that. An actual answer to that question. Typical gunnery officer asks, do you think TSR-2, if not cancelled, could be a better aircraft in its role than F-111? Do you think the Australians would procure TSR-2 over F-111 instead? TSR-2, if not cancelled, is basically worse in every conceivable way in its role than F-111. F-111 can do more, fly faster, better. It's got better ability to adapt to low and high altitude strike. It's got a better bomb load. It's just better. F-111 is just better than TSR-2. And quite frankly, TSR-2 was basically running out of steam. And also, to be frank, I mean, Lord Hardfasher did a really good video on both the TSR-2 and F-111. TSR-2 was always going to be cancelled. It suffered such feature creep, and it was trying to do far too much with the technology, with a British technology base just couldn't keep up with it. I mean, Fox has also covered this on Ramblings before. There was just no way TSR-2 was ever going to be anything more than the tech demonstrator and a flying prototype. Although TSR-2 did feed Concorde, don't forget. Saduni asks on YouTube, what would the British Navy need to do to close the gap with the Russian Navy in terms of raw explosive yield per ship? AKA, what do they need to do to increase firepower per ship? Do you want my brutal answer to this? They can't. They cannot. The Russian Navy has a anti-ship missile throw weight superior to any navy in the world, save the US and the Chinese. And that's only if the US and the Chinese pack their VLS on their ships primarily for anti-ship strike. Leaning more towards anti-ship loads than AA loads, which they don't normally do. There is no way the Royal Navy can match the US Navy, sorry, can match the Russian Navy in terms of raw explosive power, missile throw weight, ship for ship. They just cannot. You would have to convert all of the Vanguards to carry nothing but VLS Tomahawk and pack them full of Tomahawk, Knight, Dr. Clark can't disagree with me. I'm absolutely right. There is no way the Royal Navy can match the Russians in terms of missile throw weight. To be brutally honest with you, we can't even stop them killing us. I said this 2 weeks ago. I'll say it again. Nope, bone meal, it's still not enough. That barely matches you. Maybe one of the Gorshkovs? Maybe? Like, Knight, Dr. Clark can... Dr. Clark is, to be frank, given the state of the... Well, he used to be. He's fairly well woken up now to the state of the RN. We're all in agreement. Myself, Cyclic, Dr. Clark, Drac, Phoenix, Shipyard. No. Saduni, you need a combined multinational force of France, the Netherlands, Germany, the United Kingdom to even stand a chance against Russian Northern Fleet on a bad day. And that's me assuming Northern Fleet only has a third of its ships with a third of its missile loads. And that's not even including the sub... No. Oh, no. 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 No, no. No. The Russians have recommissioned a Kirov, and even without the Kirov, the Gorshkovs and the Sverdlovs and Udalois are still more than capable of stopping a Tomahawk salvo like that. With the Kirovs back in the service with modernized S-300 and the sheer amounts of it they carry, it's just... No. 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 Yeah. The Royal Navy cannot match the Russian Northern Fleet right now. And will not be able to for some time. Anyway, moving on. Spook Gunnery Officer.
Hola.
Hi. In terms of the Pershing tank, could have arrived earlier in World War II myth. Why don't we talk about if the M36 Jackson could have arrived in Europe during or after D-Day, earlier than IRL, since the M36 only finished take the M10 hull and slapped on the new turret for the 9mm gun. Easy production line upgrade, so to speak. That's not how the... No, that's not how the M... No, that's... No, it isn't.
Yes.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. The M30... Everyone flies over again. The M10 is based on the M3 Lee chassis. And has a whole form sculpted around that. Though the M36 looks very similar to an M10, it is doing the same thing on the M4 chassis, which, despite what various keyboard warriors will tell you, is actually very different and upgraded compared to the M3 chassis that came before.
Okay. For correction. Some M10s, especially the earlier M10s, are using the lower hull of the M3. The later M10s are using the lower hull of the M4. Which is why you have to draw, which is why this is some degree of distinction between M10s. But for the actual question, the M10 was doing the job. I mean, because think about it, what German armor can the M10 not deal with?
It's basically only when the M10 starts to run it. Basically, it's when the Allies start encountering Panther as the mainline German battle tank in the West on a very regular basis that M10 starts to struggle. It's only at that point that the US Army in Europe goes, we're actually having difficulty. M10 is no longer good enough for more than 40% of the combat scenarios involving enemy armor. And at that point, that's a high enough percentage that it is worth upgrading to something that then becomes 100% effective in pretty much every anti-armor scenario once again. Whereas beforehand, if M10 runs into a Tiger or a Panther, only like 10% of any combat scenario, that's not enough of a problem to be worth fixing.
And the M10's cannon did regularly deal with Panthers. It's not what. Don't think of it like War Thunder. It's not to Fleet. This is to people. This is to Gunnery Officer. The M10s, even frontally, were quite handily able to deal with Panthers. It's the heavier German armor, and it's so the 3-inch gun starts to get long in the tooth, especially with the advent of the 76, which is just more modern and better as a gun. And the M10 finds itself doing a mixture of anti-tank, light artillery roles. They get used a lot in the fire support role, especially in Italy.
Yeah.
Where, because you'll find dozens of photos of them on ramps so they can fire ballistically. Because it was an absolute mountain goat of a hull. And a part of the reason they push for the M36 is because the 90mm is just significantly better at the fire support role. Which is a lot of what the M10s are actually doing.
Okay, next question. Nice to one. As the North American F-86 Sabre could fit 20mm cannon, why go with 6 12.7mm machine guns when it can be argued that 12.7 MG was arguably obsolete by the time of Korea? Okay, first things first, there's this common misconception that the 50 caliber machine guns carried by the Sabre are the same as the ones in the Second World War. No. No, they are not. These are the immediate post-war machine guns that were developed in the aftermath based on experience during the Second World War, with significantly higher rate of fire and better ballistic performance for the rounds coming out of the barrel. They could fill an area with 50 caliber rounds so quickly that wall of lead is perhaps the term. And you have all of these guns clustered around the nose of the aircraft, creating a very tight cone of fire. Cannon were seen as the future for a lot of nations in the aftermath of the Second World War. But I'd argue that the Americans weren't exactly wrong, at least in this early period, to look to the tried and true 50 caliber machine gun, especially considering that despite it being, yes, just a machine gun, quote unquote, that's still a 12.7mm round coming at Mac Jesus, of which there are 6 other friends of his nearby, and you are an aircraft made of metal that is not armor plated in any way, and you've got very vulnerable squishy things inside you. Yeah. Like, this is not the era of aviation when aircraft are quite so big and tanky and just bulky that the machine gun loses its potency. Yes, the MiG-15 is a big beefy boy, but it's not so big and beefy a boy that if you pump it full of, let's say, 50 caliber rounds, you're not going to find and break something very, very explosive, very, very vulnerable, or very, very squishy and made of blood.
Yeah, but my counterpoint would be that you are entering the transonic speed and transonic engagements where you're not getting in 20, 30 hits. You're getting 2 to 3 hits when your target's actually in your gun sights and you're actually hitting.
I would say
and in that way, the 50 cal is hopelessly obsolete.
I would argue that that's only something that is borne out by Korea, and that the US has to fight Korea to learn. Given how wedded they are to the 50 caliber concept, this is something that a lot of other nations have also experienced. But the US, without any experience of jet aircraft during the Second World War in any significant way in a fighter role, hasn't really experienced that in the way that the Germans do and the Royal Air Force do with Meteor.
Well,
There's
the
also
issue is that
there's,
they
there's also
have.
there's also
It's why there is canon versions of the Mustang. Because it's something they've learned the hard way.
Yeah, but the U.S. didn't adopt any of them.
But they
Fleet is
still
right.
test
The
brand-
U.S. Army Air Force had to learn that.
Yeah.
they had to
Well,
overcome.
the Army Air Force.
they
The U.S.
had-
Air Force has to learn that in Korea
Yeah, they had to overcome.
because they were very insistent about it.
Yeah, they had to overcome significant industrial and organizational inertia.
which is fair enough. But for
And to be brutally,
for early transonic aircraft, the 50 cal is still an obsolete armament for air-to-air combat.
if so obsolete,
Yes.
why lots of MiG-15s dead?
That's just down to having. Okay, there is enough veteran air pilot in the U.S. Air Force to compensate for the fact that not every single MiG-15 is piloted by a experienced Russian pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah, they kind of were.
standards.
No, they weren't. They were mostly piloted by North Korean and Chinese pilots. The Chinese pilots were definitely a little bit better than the North Korean guys, but the North Koreans are just not ready for that kind of fights. At least going toe to toe with US pilots.
I feel that's a bit of a disservice to the North Korean aviators.
No. But it's
No.
the truth. Because you've got one force which is veteran, bloodied, and has extensive doctrinal experience in air-to-air combat and how to train for air-to-air combat. And you've got one force which doesn't have that same level of training cadre. That doesn't have the doctrinal institutional experience. That, if I remember correctly, no, I'm thinking something different, is still having issues with actual pilot quality. And early MiG-15 was questionably good aircraft.
We are also talking about a nation that just started existing 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years is not enough to train any sort of advanced pilot corps.
Someone's hot micing pretty hard.
That's Dragon.
That's Dragon.
Yeah.
And fundamentally speaking, MiG-15 is not beefy boy. MiG-15 is put pilot on engine strapped with wings
I
on
mean,
it.
that's literally what I said. I said basically that. I said everyone thinks it's beefy
You
boy.
said it was a beefy boy.
No, I said it's F-15 might be. I said MiG-15 might be considered beefy boy, but it's not. But it's not when
No.
you think about.
I'm saying it's not
That's
beefy
what I.
boy.
That's what I said.
No, you
Yeah.
didn't say that. You know what? Fuck it. Whatever.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that the 50 cal, by the time of the Korean War, for air-to-air combat is an obsolete weapon. Because you're
And
not
it is
getting the
effectively
number of
yes.
hits you're getting at slower speed combat.
It is a lesson U.S. Air Force refused to listen to for a decent amount of time, despite the U.S. Navy going like, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that anymore."
Yeah, like they had to overcome the inertia. But the Korean War was the way that happened. Chadlord asks, would it be an accurate assessment that any battle in which a single Nebula-class Star Destroyer is facing 3 Imperial-class Star Destroyers would go along a hypothetical Battle of the River Plate where the British cruisers are replaced with Lion, Tiger, and Princess Royal?
What?
I'm very confused. So, the Nebula is Graf Spee, and
Yes.
the Admiral and the 3 cruisers are replaced with Lion, Princess Royal, and Tiger to deal with being 3 Imperial Star Destroyers?
In
That's
general, personally, I
not-
find the whole thing that the Nebula can take on 3 Star Destroyers is utter rubbish, personally.
Yeah, that's not...
But that is what it's saying. Because then again, the Nebulas were really overhyped in a lot of the media, considering apparently a single Nebula can take the full firepower of a Super Star Destroyer and come out unscathed.
What?
Yeah, that's the lore behind the Nebula's lore is utterly stupid. And some of the other stuff like, oh, it can fight 3 Imperial Star Destroyers and win with no problem. It makes no sense. But I guess the idea is that yes, you've got Nebula acting as Graf Spee, and basically how do the 3 Imperial Star with the Imperial 2s, more than likely if they're at this point, would it be able to go along the lines of it where basically Nebula takes out damages 1 enough, then moves on to the next, and then tries to move on to the 3rd. But basically, they're able to do enough damage to force it to pull out effectively.
And to be brutally honest with you, there's also the fact that this isn't a direct comparison, since all 3 ships have fighter complements, and the Imperials have significant fighter complements compared to the Nebula, which means that any comparison to the River Plate just falls apart, given there's a whole 3rd element going on, that the Imperials are easily going to win, and then the Nebula's going to be swarmed by bombers.
I'm also confused. Swapping out a pair, swapping out a
It's a poorly
Count C
question.
and 2. Were they Leanders?
No, it's not actually that poorly thought out, Fox. It actually makes a lot of sense if you, to be blunt, have my level of knowledge on it, which is too much.
It's more of if it was just about the whole 3 Imperials take on a Nebula, that would make sense. I'm trying to figure out where the Battle of the River Plate comes into this.
3v1.
Yeah, so why not
but-
just say a 3v1? They're trying to
They,
do
right,
direct
Fox-
correlation between ships.
No, right. The reason why they're saying River Plate is effectively you're taking 3 older, theoretically less well-equipped ships versus 1 more modern ship with heavier firepower, theoretically, is the idea. Because, think of it this way. Graf Spee has far better guns, right? And far better armor than
Right.
than the Leanders and Exeter.
Yeah, I know about the River Plate, but I'm
Armor-
trying to figure out how
Replacing
these
them with
two-
Lyman.
Yeah.
The Graf Spee's armor is actually...
The whole thing about replaced by Liger, Princess Royal, and Tiger makes not really any sense. But I think they're basically meant to be saying, oh yeah, effectively the 3 capital ships versus another capital ship. But that bit you can mostly ignore, to be honest.
Yeah, so why? So it should have just been in a Battle of the River Plate like situation. How would a Nebula go about engaging or being engaged by 3 ISDs?
Is that what he wants to ask us a question?
That's what I think. That's what Dragon kind of answered.
Because effectively it would go along the lines where Admiral Graf Spee splits its fire. Because the Nebula-class Star Destroyers based around it has the same level of firepower in all directions. So, in a battle like this, you would assume it's probably designating, port side weapons fire that way, starboard weapons fire that way, pick and choose individual targets, try and knock one out, focus on and move on to the next one, sort of thing. Is how it makes sense to me in this scenario, and it's how you would equate it to a River Plate. Personally, I disagree that it would go along the lines of a River Plate, because you probably have the Star Destroyers in either a inverse or a standard arrowhead formation in comparison to in the River Plate where it is more of a surrounding action, and you just don't let them have a chance to try and target one or the other. You just go, this is the enemy, we focus all ships on this, etc. Ignoring the fighter aspect for now, just because yes, that really does differentiate from it, but on average the Imperials should win that fighter engagement because they have significantly higher numbers. Sorry about the phone sliding there. So yeah, that's probably the best answer without me actually getting really technical and going on about this far too long.
Timu82 on YouTube asks, what if the UK would have put firm orders to Avro Canada to the CF-105 Arrow before the change in government in Canada? Would the project still be cancelled? Well, there is the minor problem that the English Electric is now sharpening its knives and plunging them deep into the heart of government ministers for basically ordering a manifestly inferior product than the Lightning for the UK's air defence needs. The CF-105 does not meet any need that the UK needs. It's slower, it doesn't carry any guns, it can't carry infrared missiles in the same way that Lightning can, and its scramble time is laughable compared to Lightning. The only thing it has going for it is range. But that's not what the UK needs.
No, but it but it wouldn't have the same pilot mortality rate, the short range, the incredibly short engine life, the very limited capability of the Lightning to carry missiles, the god-awful fuel capacity of the Lightning. It would not have most of the issues of the Lightning.
I disagree. Given the issues the Avro was having, and given
But the issue is that the issues the Lightning have are fundamental to the airframe. Because of how the engines are set up and how the wings are set up, you have very little to no internal volume for fuel storage.
Yes, but
you have to later on put the tanks over the wing.
Yes, but that's...
Yeah, and you have to choose between fuel tanks to make the interception and the missiles to make the interception.
No, you don't. You can have 2 missiles and 2 fuel tanks, plus guns.
Yeah?
Which is fine for bomber interception work.
Yep. No.
Yes,
No,
yes, it is. You can't just say, no, it isn't. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Specifically.
Why isn't it?
Because if you look at what it's going against in the interception role, when you're looking at stuff like the Gloucester Javelin, that is going up against, and they're going, oh, we like having the ability to carry 4 Aidens and 4 missiles to deal with bombers.
Whoa.
2 missiles.
Whoa, hold on. The question wasn't what the Royal Air Force liked. I asked you if it was enough for bomber interception. Don't go pivoting the question on me now.
It's the bare minimum. But then, they considered the Javelin adequate for bomber interception.
They were off their nut.
In the 50s.
Then
something with less flight time, less armament, less ammunition, and less fuel is distinctly less capable.
That wasn't the question at all, but all right.
Yeah, but as I understand it, the Arrow was looking to be somewhat more akin to the Javelin, but supersonic than with its missile load. Then the fucking flying rocket that was the Lightning. So
it's lacking the crucial gun armament though.
Yeah, but you can put a gun on it.
Not really, not with the way it's set up.
No.
What's stopping you putting a gun armament on it?
It's just not needed. It's not what the RAF wants.
It's also also the Arrow gives you the ability to fire semi-active radar missiles. Yeah. It has a longer engagement range than a Lightning,
which are already in development for. Well, they've already got missiles for it that would never end up being put on it, but they are developing semi-actives for the T-Vixen.
And obviously, of course, this is the first initial model. They wanted a complete different engine for it.
They
And
wanted a
by the
different
time-
engine and a gun armament.
Obviously, the entire issue is the UK were only looking at the Arrow as a stopgap until I think it's the F-155 program or the requisition finally trickles through.
Yep.
But I think they canceled based on the reason that the Arrow will most likely arrive just before the requirements goes through, and it will most likely cause an overlap in order received.
Yeah, and you're also killing
Like
a
that.
program that English Electric needs to keep going in favor of.
And
yes,
also,
yes, it's a Commonwealth program. Like Avro Canada is still a Dominion at this point, but it's not a British
Because-
aircraft manufacturer.
Yeah, but consider that the English Electric Lightning was developed on a whim. Because someone wanted to go fast. Before being basically repurposed as an interceptor.
either way, the primary problem with to actually answer the question, unless the UK government is basically willing to fund the rest of the development of the Arrow, no, Canada is canceling it no matter what. So
Yep.
the UK's firm order that Timmy suggested will have to be a relatively large order in order to cover out the tap turning off from Canada.
You're talking at least 200 airframes, maybe more.
Probably a lot more than 200.
I was going for bare minimum here.
So I say, Canada
I mean-
is exceedingly broke by that stage.
The Programming officer asks, do you think using nuclear-tipped cruise rockets or missiles for air-to-air engagement is kind of overkill during the early to late 50s Force Power came into service? Don't they fear friendly fire or civilian kills? No, not really. Considering that given the use case for these weapons was to stop a bloke in an aircraft carrying a nuclear weapon that is going to obliterate an entire town, city, or region of your country. And the alternative is using a much smaller nuclear detonation to be absolutely, completely sure you got the fucker. And in that circumstance, it makes perfect sense. And is not
Hey.
overkill.
Don't you just love the economics of nuclear war?
Yeah. If the alternative is a bomber, is that you might not get the bomber with your air-to-air rockets in Canada and he drops a thermonuclear bomb on a city, or you fire off a large single-piece rocket with a kiloton level warhead and you're absolutely fucking certain you got that bastard. Yeah. It's not even a contest. Like the one in the Canadian Power Timeline, alt timeline, which I've never heard of. Australia and Mexico get the license to build their own Spruance class destroyers. Why would the US do something like that? I mean, it would be an extension of the US's programs they've done before. Australia built the Perths, which were a...
No. Isn't this the one where you got the basically entirely different United States? Because it's running off a different history.
No, that's AAO.
Okay.
Canada's a superpower, apparently.
I don't know this timeline.
Yeah, I don't know the part of the timeline.
I'm just... Oh my god, this is Canada wank of the highest order. Apparently, Canada buys Iranian F-14s, and they buy Eagle off the UK, and apparently the F-14 fits on Eagle. Statements by the utterly deranged. The F-14 fits on Eagle. No, it fucking doesn't. No, it fucking doesn't. She can't even launch and recover them, never mind fit them in a fucking hangar. Statements by the utterly deranged. Oh my god. Oh my god, why? Who this is just Canada wank. I cannot. Yeah, so yeah, there's a reason why the US would do this. Title that aside, the part about doing license builds, Bruins-class destroyers, that's actually fairly believable. Let's not forget that during the real world, the US did give licenses to build what became, in Australia, the Perth-class destroyers, which were license-built versions of the US Charles F. Adams-class guided missile destroyers. So such a thing isn't unheard of. And when they were offered, they were the latest and greatest USN DDGs. So the US wasn't opposed to technology transfer. Not in that sense, anyway. So there's no real reason why, if the Australians did want to pursue that, and the Mexicans did want to pursue that, and both stumped up the cash to buy the license to build them, there's no reason the US would be opposed to that, given that they weren't opposed to such things historically. Bear in mind, the Australians and the Mexicans are regional allies and partners to the United States of America. The US is not going to be opposed to more friendly bang in the region. And despite...
Yeah, but I'm looking at... I'm not looking at it, but... I'm not necessarily seeing if Canada is actually aligned with America in this.
Well, no, Canada's not getting the licenses to build Spruances. It's Australia and Mexico. Apparently.
Yeah, I was...
So...
Because, right. The issue is we're being asked to comment on a timeline that none of us have fucking read. So, Knight, can you please not ask questions about this? Unless you want for the rest of this ramblings to go through and read the timeline.
And I have...
If you'd be up for it.
I'm gonna do that question because that is a really good question, actually. Because that is actually a really interesting question, and it's someone break out the bell. It's a rare typical gunnery officer W question. Somebody break out the party poppers. Which Commonwealth cancelled fighter do you consider as the best on paper for the early 50s? The CF-103, the CAC CA-23, the Supermarine 553, or the Hawker P-1081? Now, from what I'm aware, and from what I understand, given what I know of these various aircraft, and I'm a little bit hazy on some of them. But from what I understand, these are all high transonic aircraft of roughly equivalent capability. I think the CAC-23 is arguably the most radical of them, I believe. Almost akin to a Super Saber alike, given the way it was apparently supposed to look. Supermarine 553 wasn't really a fighter prototype, it was a experimental
Testbed.
testbed. So that brings us down to 3. In terms of the one that I think would have been most interesting, I've got to say it's CA-23. The other ones are fairly conventional transonic jet aircraft of the early 50s, designed to work in that world. CA-23 is a all-weather, 2-seater, 2-jet, supersonic fighter aircraft. Designed for a reasonable range and a reasonable speed. Of all the things that I think I would have liked to have seen, it's definitely up there.
What is the
Foxo?
definition of best on paper?
Oh, my definition is the one that had the most potential to be a game changer for Commonwealth aircraft development. And of the 3, it's CAC-23. And because the other one would have been, if we were talking about non-fighter aircraft, Supermarine Type 553, a jet aircraft designed to break Mach 2 in level flight, would be up there. Because the wealth of data such a testbed grants to any program or area that it operates in is massive. That data, especially as you're moving towards the mid to late 60s, is worth its weight in gold not only in aircraft development, but the lives it will save. In terms of identifying problems that you get when you operate at those high Mach numbers. Foxer will agree with me here.
Yeah.
But in terms of fighter aircraft, it's gotta be CA-23. It's not even close. Bye, Shadow Lord. Night 6. Night 61 asks, in the Canadian Power Alt timeline, the Canada buys 4 ex-Iranian Kid-class destroyers for the US for $550 million. For the Royal Canadian Navy, how much of a good deal is this? I mean, I will say what I would say for any Navy, alt history timeline or not. Buying the 4 kids grants whatever Navy buys them the 4 most powerful guided missile combatants in the world at that time, in terms of being all-round missile combatants. There is no ship on planet Earth, when the kids come into service, save perhaps some of the US missile cruisers that are significantly bigger than them, that are their equal for their tonnage. None. You got 2 twin-arm launchers carrying the best long-range interception missile the US can build at the time. 16 Tomahawk. Sorry, not Tomahawk. 16 Harpoon. I think it's 8 at first, 16 later. 8 Harpoon. Capacity for a Helo. To do ASW work. And they're fairly quick and decently ranged. And fairly good sea boats. These 4 ships are... Yeah, there's just... Whichever Navy owns these 4 ships, if it doesn't already have a area air missile day capability, and it just gained it. A mature area air defense missile capability. It's just... Yeah. it is like the kids are just that good. This is what happens when a minor power with more money than sense asks the US for the absolute best missile destroyer they can build. The kids were when the Shah of Iran said, "I want no expense spared, build me 4 of the best missile destroyers you can build." And the US built him 4 of the best missile destroyers they could build. Anyone else got anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Typical gunnery officer asks, which 20mm cannon would you rather have for your AA gun in a single mount in the mid-40s? 20mm Ehrlichen, 2cm flak 30-38 flak reeling, 20mm model F2 gun, Isvara Suiza H404 or Japanese Type 99 cannon. Which do you consider the best for the mid-40s?
Elegant.
Organs.
If
Hispanos are a good aircraft-to-aircraft weapon, but for land-to-air, their relatively low velocity hurts them significantly.
Also quite lightly built, so sustained fire is
Yes.
questionable.
The Ehrlichen is capable of relatively high velocity rounds persistently and can keep up that constant rate of fire to a degree that I don't believe any of those other light anti-air can do.
No, 20mm flak 30 can. In fact, it can do it slightly better if it's the version of flak 38 that I believe feeds from open clip on a tray, because there is a version of flak 30 and 38 that doesn't feed from clip. It feeds from open tray that you can just continually feed like Bofors. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know there is a version of it that does feed that way. And that would
I'm
have
interested in
and that would
Yeah.
have, the highest rate of fire out of any of the guns. Well,
Yeah,
well,
the
highest
issue is that that's the land-based version.
yeah, the one.
Isn't the does it say where we're operating this?
No, it just says AA gun in a single mount for the mid-40s.
I'm just more interested in why gunnery officer decided to put in a 1980s 20 bill into the list.
Which one?
The French one.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. In that
Yeah.
case, I'll take the French one, please and thank you.
But yeah, like basically the reason that I
I'll take the Ehrlichen because I can still use it and maintain it, Fox. So thank you.
Yeah, the reason I would want flak, the German flak is just that ability to continually keep feeding it rounds until whatever we're shooting at is fucked off out of line of sight. Which I like the idea of.
Yeah, okay. I would go for an Ehrlichen because pretty much all versions of the Ehrlichen are capable of the long period sustained fire.
Yeah.
Only some versions of the German one is what you're describing.
I don't think the Ehrlichen has that feed system. I think it's all clips and magazines for the Ehrlichen. I don't think it has continuous feed, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain Ehrlichen doesn't have that. There's also the fact that I could be wrong about the 2cm flak as well, because I'm getting images in my mind of perhaps the German 37 with that feed system, and I could be conflating the two guns. It's possible.
So the Ehrlichen has the high capacity drum magazines,
Yeah, and I'm just
which is
thinking,
the 60 round drums.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking.
But,
I
sorry,
don't-
it's actually no. Oh, yeah, okay. So early versions from the 30s, from the late 30s, are the 60 round magazines. In the early 40s, they transitioned to the belt-fed system.
Right. You just keep adding belts on until
Yeah.
the thing you're shooting at stops resembling a problem.
Yeah, and since it said mid 40s,
In that case, then
Fortis,
I'm
it's
joining
going to be
you.
the belt then.
Yeah, I'm joining you in the Urlican then, because that gives me all the benefits of Urlican with all the benefits of keep shooting until the fucking thing dies.
I mean, if I'm in an aircraft, it's the Hespernos. Give me the Hespernos if I'm in an aircraft.
Timo asks, where would Foxo place the Deer Fleet if he would have the unfortunate fate to become a dreadnought in the 40k universe? That would assume I would survive becoming a space marine, which I don't think I would.
No. You're from London. You're going to survive becoming a space marine.
I'm not from London. We
No. All the British, the former British Isles are a part of Hive London.
Ah, right.
So yeah,
You see, Londonium never stopped its expansion, basically, in 40k.
yeah. It's even eaten parts of the Netherlands. So so do you want the cruel answer or the not cruel answer?
The cruel answer is, Foxo, we stick him in a Leviathan or a Redemptor.
No. Dragon. So, Dragon, you know this. What's the sector? I say we stick him in a Leviathan Dreadnought, and we make him a Black Templar. Specifically, a Black Templar that is going on the Ghoul Star Crusade.
Oh,
Yeah, that would work.
That is beyond vile.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Don't worry, you won't.
Yay.
For the nice version, I think he would do quite well with the Imperial Fist. He's got the right kind of autism for it.
I will fortify this position. I will continue fortifying this position.
You're good at digging in, especially digging in with bad decisions. Cough, Rogel Dog. So I would put you on the Phalanx in M38 in a Dreadnought.
Yay.
Get ready to be thrown at Abaddon the Despoiler.
Yippee. I am fortifying this position. I have ripped Failbadon's arms off. I am fortifying this position using his arms. Okay.
For context, how many people here actually know what the Ghoul Stars are?
I know there's some funky shit up there, but no one's quite sure what's up there.
You don't want to go there.
It is the space. It is the region of the galaxy where space is wrong.
How can space be wrong? Space is just space unless it's a warp storm.
Someone should tell that to the Ghoul Stars. Well, the Ghoul Stars are the source of the Flare virus. The only Necron tombs that have been completely consumed by the Flare virus are in the Ghoul Stars. And the Necrons don't know why it happens.
Well, we know why they have the Flare virus. I think. Unless the law has changed.
We know. Okay. It's both. The Flare virus is related to issues with keeping consciousness after biotransference. And the suffering and the basic mind break that comes from I need to breathe, I can't breathe, I need to breathe, I can't breathe, I can't scream. but it's also a case of Necrons outside the Ghoul Stars just tend to go mad. In the Ghoul Stars, they become flayers and become so much worse.
Right, so it's not that it's not the source of the flare virus. It's just another. There is another transmission vector for the flare virus in the Ghoul Stars, as opposed to the standard transmission vector for the flare virus, which is a certain Catan getting really, really pissed at being shattered, and deciding that they all needed to have a little taste of the old viral treatment.
Yes, because current law has it so the virus has its origin in the Ghoul Stars and was used as a weapon / punishment by Vactan.
Right.
Because the Ghoul Stars are... Dragon, you'll be better explaining this. Because they come up a lot in the Dark
Awful.
Angel stuff.
God awful. Don't go there. Don't even exist near there.
Right. One last question, then we're done for the day.
I just headshot a bloke with 16-inch armor piercing.
1971, in the Canadian Wank timeline, the USN gets a modified Ticonderoga class cruiser with 2 6-inch guns. Was this doable IRL? In
Yes.
theory, yeah. If you stretch the Tycho a bit and put some reworked turrets on her, yeah, there's no reason why a Tycho couldn't carry 2 6-inch guns. It would be a slightly it would be a slightly different hull form, but yeah, you could do it.
Yeah, because a part of the 8-inch advanced gun system, there was also a 6-inch gun version of it.
Yeah. But
So
it was
it would
basically
just be a case of...
Yeah. Go on.
You have basically a smaller version of the strike cruiser gun.
The whole thing with the 6-inch advanced gun system is that whilst there was some interest, it was basically felt you've got a fully automatic 5-inch gun, you're worried about losing the range and hitting power of 8-inch. If you're going to make a second caliber of gun, when most of the 6-inch guns are bowing out of the fleet anyway, why would you
make an
settle...
8-inch.
Yeah, why would you settle for the weaker gun when you can have a significant up-reach in capability, and then if you need more firepower, you've got the option to reactivate the step up again, which is the Iowas, if you need that.
Yeah, because with the advanced gun system, the traits that make the 8-inch a worse gun in some situations than the 6-inch, being rate of fire and sustained rate of fire, had ceased to be an issue. You lost nothing by going to 8-inch.
Yeah.
But you got a higher velocity, more capable round with that a much longer engagement range.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But there was still a 6-inch version of that system.
And with that, we come to the end of our
Which
time.
was actually considered for the Tychos as well.
Yeah.
So it's just quite literally take another option for the Tychos.
Yep. Anyway, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you've all enjoyed. Please do tune in. So I've got a few quick announcements quickly before I go. So I will be recording and uploading this weekend the first episode of The Anchorage, which will be myself, Phoenix, and Cyclic discussing modern naval topics in a specialized recorded format rather than a Q&A format. The first 2 episodes will be primers, basically covering the way in which naval warfare has changed from 45 through to about 2005. And then after that, we're going to probably cover various things like European navies, like what's happening in China, the role of the modern carrier, etc., etc. So please do tune in for that later down the line. So probably coming out on Sunday if the recording on Saturday goes well, which I have no reason to doubt that it will, hopefully. So nice, much nicer, more organized format, and something I've been planning for a while. we've obviously got. Well, no, it's a recorded series team. I'm not even on Spotify. I wouldn't even know how it worked. So that's not gonna be a thing that I do. I don't know Spotify. Dealing with Twitch and YouTube is already hard enough. So yeah, there's that to deal with. I'm in discussions with a certain member of the panel to offer his voice to another project that I'm working on in the near future. So let's just say a certain Dutch battle cruiser will ride again, but I won't say any more than that because spoilers. But if all goes well, I'll start recording that at some point, and we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm trying to balance obviously real life with this, since unfortunately this doesn't pay the bills. Real life pays the bills. And whilst I do dearly love my colleagues and all the rest of it, I do have to put real life before the channel on pretty much every occasion because yeah, it's just the way it is. So, thank you everyone for coming. Take care as always, and if you are a Twitch enjoyer, I'll see you on Sunday for week 6 of the ongoing cluster truck that is Fleet's attempts to reform the Macedonian Empire. That's also up on YouTube, by the way, if people do want to check that out. And yeah. Also, please, if you do like what you're seeing here, I don't say this very often, but I will say this now. Make sure to leave a comment and subscribe. It'll help make me go faster. I do also have a Patreon as well. It's linked in the video description, as it always is. Discord server, all that good jazz. Take care, and it's goodbye from me. Goodbye from the panel.